Fantastic. So, hi, Kathleen. So those of you who are here, if you want to put your name and where you're from in the chat, that would be great. And if you're new, if you could raise your hand and introduce yourselves, that would also be awesome. You'll meet up with some a few people privately in a breakout later, but if you're new to our little gathering, raise your hand and introduce yourselves. So we are going to pivot a little about what we're going to talk about today. Kind of, as I was saying earlier, it's like I saw a meme that said, can I cancel my subscription to 2025? And, you know, one of the things that's so important and what we learn from the peace economy is resilience. And we can see that resilience is really the muscle that we all want to be building together, and cultivating a peace economy cultivates that resilience. As I was working with someone today, it's like, we are just not, you know, accustomed to patience, accustomed to presence. And those are the things that actually give us the resilience we need. But here we are as we come together today, a historic day, I hope a profoundly historic day of the ceasefire agreement, which is both exciting and just makes my head want to explode with anger at Biden for how many innocent lives have been lost. And we've got extreme weather conditions in the east and fires in the west. So yes, welcome to 2025. And if anybody wants to raise their hand and introduce themselves now, or you can introduce yourselves later, we welcome you. If you're new, please put your name and where you're from in the chat so we kind of see where we're all from. This is where we come together as a community of those working to cultivate a local peace economy locally. This is the community that comes together to share, be inspired by each other, and connect once every other week. So, and Cameron and I have been in the steeps of the local peace economy for the last week, because we live in Los Angeles, in the inferno of fires that have befallen it in 2 different parts of the city. So for some of you who haven't met, Cameron is our culture coordinator here at the local peace economy. And Marie's got our back here. She's here, who's, you know, gets us here, takes care of us, communicates with us, holds us together. So Marie's here again, holding us together and keeping all the things running. Thank you, Marie. So to start, as always, as we do whenever we're coming together in our communities, is to ground, to breathe, and to be inspired with some piece of culture. So I turn it over to Cameron.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Glad you're all here with us. To ground, we're going to listen to a song by Haley Hendricks. The song is called, Anxious God. So I'm just going to share my screen so that we can do that. While we listen to the song, please focus on your breathing and make sure you're breathing really deeply straight into your belly. But yeah, enjoy.
Go, mind, go. Well, I couldn't believe what the water had told me. That man unplanned used to talk. Man, I'd do anything to hear the redwoods talk. God, mind, God. Well, I couldn't believe what the walnut tree and nettle leaf told me. That man and bird used to sing. Well, now they only met here south of just trying to let in my soul sing by just moving to the forest of no skin sand. Well, not yet, but my God, mind, God. Well, I couldn't believe what that pebble in the little brown stream had told. Humankind getting lost. Not even little bugs want to talk. I'm humming picks the blues. Just trembling, can a soul be saved by just moving to the forest of no skin sand? I wanna bet you, it's my God, ancient God. Well, I couldn't believe what the day had shown. You drive me home before it got dark, and I'd do anything to hear the redwoods talk.
Thank you all for listening. I know the audio got a little messed up there, but I'll share the link to the song in the chat. And I want to turn it back over to Jodie so that we can start talking about just everything that's going on right now. There's a lot. Both Jodie and I are in Los Angeles, so I'll be talking about the east side and she'll be talking about the west side, but I think she has a few other things to talk about first.
Thanks, Cameron. That was really, what a great thing to bring us into nature, and the resilience of the redwoods, their strength. And I thought it was interesting, the anxiousness. So that all the disruption and chaos, will create us feeling.
Yeah, it felt very relevant to the moment right now because we're in California, the forest is burning down, but we all really want, like I really want to be connected to the earth. I think most of us really do. So.
Thank you. Which is where we can find our strength and our grounding. So good reminder. Thank you so much. So yes, here we are. I want to start with the ceasefire because it's not where we're going to go, but I just want to start there. I think it has a lot to teach us, and it's probably where all our hearts are right now. And also it's the complexity of it, I think, speaks to the local peace economy work. Yes, it's a ceasefire, and we've been working for it for what, 15 months or 14 months. And yet it was available day 3. And it was available during the temporary one, and it's been on the table. And it took Trump to do what we told Biden to do, to pick up a phone and say, you have to do it. And so it's like the complexity of all the thing that you worked for so long happening, and yet so many innocent people are unnecessarily dead. An entire, country, space is destroyed. And as I forgot who said it earlier, but there's a ceasefire with Lebanon that they break every day. So what does that mean? What is the reality of that? We won't know until it happens. And so how do you let yourself feel the release of it, feel the breath of it, while you go back to holding your breath, while you go back to holding each other? And also, just as we do this local peace economy work, what we know is, like, if you even start to work towards wellness, the grief that is in the way, on the way there, is enormous. And I think of, just our whole community that has been engaged for all these months in hell and horror and a genocide, being funded by the government and our tax dollars. And everybody just in forward motion, and what happens when your adrenaline goes down, and how we get sick, right? We get all the things we weren't paying attention to arise and need attention. And what is it like to be in Gaza and be in survival mode and fierce mode of survival, and then have this happen that creates its own disassociation, its own space for feelings that weren't allowed? It's just like, we're in a time of a lot of complexity. And so I say resilience. How can we both feel all of it, be in relationship with all of it, hold each other through it, and not let it crush us? It's the constant in this process of, unmasking and ending the war economy. It's going to look like this a lot. If we're moving forward, this is what it looks like. So it's like, it doesn't look like flowers and roses, it's like on the way there. It's a difficult path of a lot of debris that needs to be cared for, cleaned, moved, so I'm pivoting from this to where we are inside of this fire zone to talk about this whole process, because it is the process. If we are going to move from where we are to where it is healthier, it's messy. And so it's just, how do we hold each other in the messiness? Because we will all have feelings, we will all have needs, and we have to think about the needs of those closest to it, right? It's like, we're having our reaction, but what is it for the Palestinians? I mean, what even is it for the Israelis? What is it for the Zionists? It's a lot, because it's moving everyone out of, it's like, as we move out of the war economy, out of an engagement that feels like home into a new engagement, is a real step. And everyone is related in a certain way to this. It's got us held in some way that is falling apart. So what is just a core piece of what we're learning in the local peace economy is resilience, because it's been taken away from us, right? It's been denied. The war economy, that's one of the things that tries to erode so that you need it and you hold on to it and you fear for your safety every minute. So back to the nature of resilience that is possible for us and that it happens in this process. It happens in the discomfort. It happens in remembering who we are, in standing on the ground, in listening to the beautiful music, in holding each other, in speaking across to the other. And an example, like as this is happening, so as we look at this, these wars we want to end in Ukraine and in Palestine, and the negotiations that have to happen, and the violence and horrors that have happened there. And then we looked at China, the war we're trying to stop, and that's being driven by making them the enemy, and just all the lies and propaganda and distortion that we live inside of there. And at the same time as this is happening, people are jumping off of TikTok and calling themselves TikTok refugees on the Red Book. And you're watching the most beautiful human connections that I've seen in a long time. I mean, literally, that bring me to tears. So it's being able to be in the big picture of all of it while being relational to where we are. And in the relationship here and the relationship here, that they be in relationship to reality and not concepts, not fears, not propaganda, but it's like, where is the thing that nourishes life? And life is complex. And it, reality doesn't happen our way. Life is what happens when you're making other plans, so, and always has been. So just to ground us in that space right now, Cameron and I live in Los Angeles, and we live on two different sides of the city. Now, I've been in relationship to both because I've been living on one side and giving my service on the other, but we're going to separate them because her expertise is culture, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the two cultures. I live in the war economy culture, and she lives in the peace economy culture more. So in the shades of things, on one side and she's on another, of the shades where they are. On my side of town, there's no mutual aid. On her side of town, because of all the needs it had developed, and a couple of the ones that are really active right now started in my living room. So let's just, we're going to start with a little bit of storytelling. For starters, we knew this was going to happen, but did nothing. So that's the other piece for me that relates to this work, is that starting this local peace economy work was like, it's coming. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we need to be prepared. And my friends, that were in the Paradise Fire, we knew there was going to be a fire. We didn't expect it to be that fast or that furious. Fast and furious, these are the reminders. So why are we doing the work of the local peace economy? Is because these things come fast and furious, and you don't know what they are, but being prepared doesn't hurt anything. It only helps everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like cultivating a local peace economy helps the moment, it helps the future, it helps everything. So being prepared is a useful thing to do in all ways. So that's the first thing I can take out of this, that everyone in LA knew this was happening. We talked about it. It was like, oh, the summer fires didn't happen, but the winter fires are going to be hell. We knew it hadn't rained. We knew everything was dry, and we knew the winds were coming. So I just want to start there, because that is the kernel of this work. Is like, yes, you can't see it, but it is coming, and we have no idea what it's going to look like. So next is that the government has been funding the war instead of the peace, right? So here, instead of funding the firefighters, it funded the cops. And what we're finding is a lot of more cops. ICE is arresting. I'll let Cameron go into that, but more cops. And that power is dumb on steroids, unrelational, dumb on steroids. So we looked at power, but everything it shows us is how dumb it is. This is my community over here, and where I lived for 30 years is right where the fire was. So 30 years of my life, that was my community. So I have more than 100 friends and family who lost their homes. So I want to one other thing is, also how fast things change from the immediacy. Like as soon as it happened, we didn't have electricity, we're trying to get candles, we're trying to take care of each other, it's freezing cold, and refugees are needing a place to live. And so you also don't have everything to offer, and you're in shock. And I can tell you, it was a palpable experience of that day, trying to figure out what I needed to do, and how hard it was to just, everything felt like I was going through molasses until the initial shock ran out. And then the next 2 days where you're just waiting for the next, fierceness to happen until more information happens so you can unpack yourself from the thing hanging over your shoulders that could have hit any moment. And then, having reality, because you don't know what reality is for quite a while until stories start being told. And what happens to your psyche in that. And then just the other thing about living in the war economy side of town, where all the more privileged people live, is when you're calling, first of all, they're taking care of themselves. And they're taking care of their nuclear. You're not seeing them. Even as I'm collecting stuff and raising money, they're still dealing with themselves. So, it's super, the extremity of how they're experiencing it doesn't hold anything else. Where when I'm working over by Altadena, they're worried about you, that you came all the way over to help them. It's like there's another, they're like worried about you, it's like, and you just came to help them. They're just, oh my God, sorry, so the discrepancy between the me and the individualism and the privilege, and people fighting over $16,000 rooms in a hotel, and being way more okay. Oh no, they went to, they just drove north, or they drove south, and then just, people like, oh, I can't breathe the air, so I'm going to go, somewhere else out of the city, and not actually help people. So those are the, I've taken up my time, so I have a lot more to say, but Cameron, now you.
Thank you, Jodie. So I'm based in Highland Park, so I'm right near the Altadena fires. I didn't have to evacuate, but I'm very close to a lot of people who have been affected by the fires, and I've just seen over this past week an insane growth in the mutual aid world. This is something that is talked about natural disasters all the time. Like, everyone knows that mutual aid and community care grows really strong when there's a natural disaster, but really living through it is a different experience. What I'm seeing is like people are donating so much that places have to turn donations away. And so all of the leftover donations for fire victims are getting sent to the other mutual aid projects throughout LA, such as like projects on Skid Row, or projects helping unhoused people. And so there's so much community support that all of the needs of the city are getting met right now, because they're looking for something to do. People have an innate desire to care and help people, and it's just a matter of initiating that and inciting that. And once it's incited, people help. So the mutual aid world is growing. I saw one of the orgs that I'm part of, like, they met their year-long fundraising goal in one day because of the fires and because people were wanting to support mutual aid projects. And then on the other hand, there's an influx of community agency, like an individual agency. So a friend of mine is from Altadena, and they had multiple friends who were losing their homes. So they made a Google Doc, a Google Sheet for GoFundMe's where people could donate. And then within a day, that sheet blew up and became the central hub where people were putting their GoFundMe's. Now there's 826 families listed on that sheet. And when I asked my friend about it, they're just like, literally anyone can make a Google Sheet. It's just, you just do something and If it works, then it blows up. If it doesn't work, then it won't blow up. But it's
Grow, not blow up.
yeah, sorry. Become popular. Gotta fix the language. But yeah, it's just like about seeing what needs are there and realizing that you personally have the power to meet them. And what I'm seeing around me is a lot of people are able to take on that agency and come up with their own projects, and a lot of people are just looking for permission to be involved in helping people. And both of those ways of being involved are important. And that's amazing. Another thing that I noticed was there's when a natural disaster strikes, when it first happens, there's like two instincts. There's the instinct for self-preservation and there's the instinct for community preservation. A lot of people, it's there's no shame, I think, in either of these, but a lot of people, their first instinct is to save themselves and get out, even if they're not in immediate danger. So I had a lot of friends who are not from LA, so they don't have community ties. And they were like, I'm gonna get out of the city because the air quality is really bad. And it is really bad. There's a lot of toxic chemicals in the air. So it's important that they took care of themselves. However, it was really interesting seeing who had the instinct for community preservation, who decided to stay and start these mutual aid projects and start these shelters and bring homemade food to the people there. And I'm saying all this because natural disasters are probably going to come for all of us at some point in our lifetime. And it's really important to start cultivating that instinct for community preservation now so that we're ready, so that we know how to take care of each other, and not just take care of ourselves. Because the only people who can take care of themselves are the people who have money, but most of us don't have money. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before we move into breakouts is the insane grief that comes with all of this. And this is like the grief for Palestine, the grief for the fires, the grief for just whatever community tragic, traumatic events are happening. So many of us isolate when we're dealing with grief. We find ourselves alone. We find ourselves too tired to engage. But I found the best grief processing is when you show up somewhere to help and then you have a casual conversation with someone next to you who's like sorting clothes and sorting donations. And you get to see their grief and they get to see yours, and you're just knitting yourself into the fabric of emotion and grief and feeling rather than holding yourself separate from it, which in turn heals you so much. So it's actually work that is healing. It's not rest. I mean, rest obviously is important, and part of being in like survival mode, not in a like in a brain way, but in a like we're just trying to survive these fires, is you do rest. You rest when you need to because you know that there's work to be done. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And for the breakouts, we just wanted to check in with all of you because so much is going on between the new presidency, between the ceasefire or supposed ceasefire in Gaza, between the fires here in LA. I don't know how many of you are in LA or just have a heart for LA right now. But so when we move into breakouts, we want to ask you what's coming up for you. And yeah, Jodie, do you have anything more to add to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's a lot to feel like right now. There's like snow, descending on the east. There's, all the things that that are happening. So it's really the chance to feel into them. What's hard, what's beautiful. We talked last 2 weeks ago about commitment and pivoting ourselves, to the, what is life. And so where do we find that we are nourishing, connecting, serving, and being nourished by life? And what's beautiful, like I told you about the TikTok, it's like I'm between, this hell over here and this beauty over here, and letting myself feel all of it. So how is it that we can fill all of it, process all of it, be available for each other? It all sounds like a lot, but actually when you're in the flow of it, it feels very human and possible and real, and not actually the opposite of exhausting, but nourishing. So Marie's put in the chat like what's kind of our prompt for when you get in your breakouts, because it feels like this is the moment we're working on. This is the local peace economy work right here, right now. It's like all of it is both the exposing, and then I'll just add, in 5 days, the Trump presidency happens. The peace president has already, done his work. But even though they can be a peace president, we know there's an intention to eviscerate the remaining threads of a state that serve those people most vulnerable. So that's also going to call on a peace economy, because that's happening. So, how do we share with each other where we are and what we're feeling? Yes. And the thing I had left for you to talk about, Cameron, was just that ICE had shown up when we're doing deliveries and caring for people. ICE is showing up and arresting people. So, the dark side, it's like the beauty of people showing up. I mean, the undocumented are showing up to take care of people and getting arrested by ICE. So it's just like we know the ugliness, we know it is there. How do we, witness and pivot to beauty, pivot to life, pivot to serving? So I'm going to leave it to Marie to put us in groups of 3, or put you all in groups of 3, and please, share openly and with each other, and we'll be back to harvest on the other side. Is there anything anyone wants to share from what they learned from their neighbor, or what this has evoked for them? Or wait, Joe, I see your finger up. You need to unmute yourself, Joe.
As a follow-up to what you had said about grief and handling it and not turning away, Kat and I talked about the need also to have strategies, like my own one that I share with others much more openly than I ever did before, is my mindfulness practice, because this is hard. It's hard to face. I'm getting messages. We're getting, in my small group here in Peterborough, we're in touch with a family in a small community in Gaza, and the videos that they're sending, I mean, I'm in touch anyway, but God, the videos, they're just so painful, man. So we have to find ways to not turn away, but to help each other, however, and not ever knowing for sure. I know that mindfulness is a steady, solid foundation for me, and then art and other things. But I just wanted to reinforce what you had said by those few words. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And that's definitely an important tool for resilience, because
yes,
is the space that creates that capacity for resilience. So yes, super important. Thank you so much. And we have lots of offerings of that in the cycle of reconnection. And what's great is, in my lifetime, those have become more and more available as people have to help themselves through the war economy. So that's what they're there for. But they also, create that sense of resilience that we really need. Thank you. Who else wants to share what's coming up for them, what they learn? These moments are teaching moments. Oh, yay, Dolores.
I was in a group with just Kathy and me, and Kathy had neither camera nor mic. But I already said thank you to you, Kathy, but she was amazing. Like, we had our conversation with me talking and her typing, and she shared that she's in a community of just 5,000 people in kind of an isolated area of Canada. And it kind of, for me, was kind of a metaphor or a conversation of how we can be just so far from each other and maybe not have even the tools to talk to each other, but you kind of like push through some of the awkwardness that you might feel initially, and just be honest with each other about what you're feeling, and how you might feel insecure, and also share resources. So thank you, Kathy. It was great to talk to you.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Thank you, Dolores. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super beautiful. Anyone else want to share? Tim, we haven't heard from you for a while, and you always have such rich offerings.
Okay. I got to talk with Elsie. This is the third time we've been in the group together, so it's kind of fun catching up with her and talking with Carol in North Carolina, and she was kind of filling us in about the groups out there that they're working with. But one thing, comment, we're upgrading at the San Jose Peace and Garden Center. We're redoing the garden, and we have a lot more volunteers now because they feel like they have to do something because of the Trump administration coming. So that is encouraging for me that people are wanting to join in community and feel like they to help one another through this time, and it's the calm before the storm. I think
I
the
don't know
storm
how.
is coming.
I think Cameron and I feel like we're in the storm.
I bet you do.
But you're right. It's like the storm is coming. And so that's really heartening to hear. We were just talking about like, how do people respond to Trump? And we hope it's the local peace economy, building the local peace economy, because, you know, the power structure is not serving the people. So being able to pivot and build locally is what matters. And that's a beautiful way to be responding to Trump. So thank you for that.
And one more thing, I really enjoy talking with everybody in these things. So I think other people do as well. Bye.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're here for, to connect, right? Yes. So Carol, I wonder, because you're inside of another catastrophe that happened just a few months ago, and I know that it needed local peace economy and mutual aid, and it's its own, also it goes away out of the news cycle, but you're there alone with it. Is there anything you want to share from where you sit?
So I'm in Charlotte, and I wasn't like directly involved, but I know people who were like directly part of the effort. So like I'm gonna speak to what I do know, but I do want to front by saying that I wasn't there on the ground. The I mean, it was a lot, and I mean, even here in Charlotte, a lot of the people that I organize with I'm in Jewish Voice for Peace here in Charlotte, and a lot of people have directly have family that were involved, people that were stuck like out in Boone or um, Appalachian State or like whatever. So like there's multiple different like places where people were like trapped trying to get out, and that adrenaline level was like affected here as well in Charlotte. And as soon as the ability to get there was made happen, as soon as there was literally one road that was cleared, I know of people that went. And then I don't believe that the trips to Western North Carolina ever stopped. I believe there's still groups that are here in Charlotte that go on a regular basis, and it's one of those things where you all of a sudden you see a lot of different organizations that are doing the work locally, that are participating in Western North Carolina, that you don't realize were doing local work as well, because they were in the background. And it was such a beautiful expression of the potential of what we can do together. And at the same time, like these groups that would go to Western North Carolina, there'd be people from South Carolina as well. There'd be people from other places. And that was also very helpful to see that some of the people that I had phone banked with, for example, who are from South Carolina, were there in Western North Carolina. And just the ability for all of these groups to come together um, is encouraging, because I don't know what we're going to be facing in the next 4 years. And with all of the legislation that keeps popping up in my screen, I'm like, I'm not really sure which leaders are going to be equipped to do what. And it's helpful to know that there's a lot more than what we see. And there's a lot more resources among us than we see as well, because it's not just one person.
Oh, Carol, that's an important thing to say. I think that's what we've seen is we've seen an outpouring of resources. They're there, they're just not tapped. And even tapping them well is what we need to learn, and giving them, so thank you. That's an important point to leave on. The resources are there and we need to flow them to need. And that's what we're building together locally. And, just letting what Carol said, like, warm our hearts that, unfortunately, it's tragedy. It's the tragedy of Palestine that brings us together to work in the streets, to fall in love with each other and connect each other across the world. It's, the tragedies that are befalling communities that wake up like beyond the community and connect it, so that we can hold that in our hearts. And that is part of what helps the resilience, is that, yes, we are human. Yes, we are alive. Yes, we serve life, and life is going to be calling on us. And it isn't, we have the capacity. And I think we worry we don't, we run away from it because we think we don't. And really, just to be tapped into is so nourishing. Just to really be tapped into our humanity tapped into is a beautiful thing, as are all of you. So just thank you, local peace economy, peace activists. Here we are at this precipice together with our resilience, with our hearts, with our love, and being held with Cameron and Marie and all of you. What you do locally is so beautiful. So see you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.